Welcome to the Alt Journey podcast, episode 145, the space where we invite leaders to share their authentic leadership transformation and how to lead the future. Today I sit down with Andrea Edmondson, founder of NeuroSmart and the co-author of the forthcoming book about leading from the inside out. Together, we will explore what becomes possible when you lead from capacity and not force, when your biology and behavior finally align, and when you stop overriding your own system. My name is Arjan Visser, human-centered futurist and your host. Andrea, welcome to the Alt Journey podcast.
And welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I'm delighted to talk to you today.
I'm really excited, so I just jump in with a what-if question.
Okay.
So what if leadership breakdowns aren't caused by a lack of strategy, but by a lack of internal capacity to stay regulated when it matters most?
So that's such an interesting question. I see so many talented leaders and they have the skills, they have the experience, they have the knowledge, they have the strategy. And yet in those moments when the pressure rises and perhaps their capacity is lower than they'd like it to be, it's really hard for them to execute and deliver. So there's a real gap I see between that, the intention and their actions. And for me, when I dig deeper, I see with quite questions and inquiry, I see that the gap is not knowledge, the gap is this capacity, that their system is just running in a way that doesn't support what they're trying to achieve.
And with system, what system do you mean?
So I'm talking about all biological systems, but fundamentally, I would always start with the nervous system. The nervous system is like our master coordinator. So when I'm talking to people about this, I say, you imagine you have a table, and the table is like your bones and your muscles. And over the top is a lovely tablecloth. And on top of the tablecloth come your other biological systems, like your digestive system and your cardiovascular system and your endocrine system. Everything is on top of the tablecloth. So that tablecloth is your nervous system, and it's wrinkled and it's kind of not lying smoothly in your body. All the other systems don't work quite so well. And if one of the systems doesn't work quite so well, the tablecloth gets scrunched. You've got this bi-directional relationship. But ultimately, that nervous system is that master coordinator. It's sending messages. It's the first bit of you to develop in utero. So as the egg and the sperm split, the nervous system is what emerges first. So it's a really fundamental system, but it's not just the nervous system, though. All the biological systems are constantly having this dialogue.
Well, listening to you, it immediately connects to governance, self-governance, as how, and although governance, I don't mean how to keep yourself when it just is tough, and stay aligned with who you are, where you're going, but also when life is aligned and it is where you grow, where you place you mentioned the word intentions. The intentions are there, but also where the attention is, so that it really it unfolds. We tend to talk about identity unfolding instead of replacing it with better versions. So is the nervous system somewhere the physical representation of my self leadership as well?
I think there's a strong connection. Yes. I mean, I don't like to be reductionist and say it's only the nervous system, but the nervous system ultimately is sending messages, body to brain, back and forth. And if we're talking about attention, well, where your attention goes is very much linked to your nervous system. Yeah. So if you were many years ago, but a saber-toothed tiger and you're on the prairies, your eyes are going to be on the saber-toothed tiger, right? Because that's where your attention needs to be. Now in the modern world, where is our attention? Well, it's all over the place. We have so many things to pay attention to, and that generally outside of us. And my argument is, yes, that's part of life, to pay attention to outside of us. But if we then ignore what's happening inside of us and we override that, that's when we struggle with capacity, because we're not looking after those biological systems that fuel us, that give us the energy. We're not allowing the system to direct energy to where it would serve us.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense for me, because if you just are only watching to the outside, the mindset of life is happening to me,
Mm,
and managing not to fall back in survival mode will probably consume you.
mm.
So when you work with leaders, and probably also in your own life, what is the principle that constantly unlocks clarity and effective action?
So I learnt the hard way. So for me, my work and how I started this started probably in about 2004. I had just moved. I was living in Brussels. We'd moved to the US. I'd had a new baby. I had a toddler, and I'd been ignoring my signals for a long time. And I arrived and but very quickly got very ill and was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. And what I learned through that process was, doesn't matter how much information I had and how good I was at strategy and thinking, my body I had ignored it. I'd have overridden it and it eventually just collapsed and I had to do things differently. So for me, that was the turning point from really working with mindset and being intellectualizing things to going, okay, if my body's not working well, nothing's working well. So it really changed the way I looked at things. So now when I work with leaders, they come with their stories, they come with their struggles, they come with their challenges, and I listen, but I explain about how the biology works. That actually, when we look at the body-brain connection, a lot of the data that the brain is using faster than the brain can actually work is coming from the body. And if that information, that data is off, then the brain will work differently. So I always kind of have the idea is the body goes first. Let's just work with the body first. We'll get to story, we'll get other places, but let's just retrain the nervous system to be more flexible, to know how it's functioning. I don't call it survival, I call it activated, or is it clear? Is it restoring or is it collapsed? How is the system working? And training the leader to tune in to signals that they have always been there, but have often overridden or ignored. And when they start to tune back in, then more things become possible because the brain, they can then alter those signals by what they do, how they move, how they breathe. And then the brain is open to change.
I'm just thinking of what's a parallel in organizational development, and I love to call an organization a body,
Mm,
uh, from a human perspective, a body of people, but also from just a physical perspective. And in organization development, we always see that the problems happen physical.
mm,
They're never mental. They're never ideas. They're never decisions. It's always the result of those things when it manifests physically.
mm,
So it goes wrong in logistics or it goes wrong in IT. Going through, we can fix the embodiment. At the end, it is steered from the decisions, the ideas, and all the things that are off on a logical or conceptual level. Um, But there's always the danger that we try to fix the physical in an organization and ignore that the triggers are wrong. So when you say a body goes first, um, I could interpret that two ways. One way
yeah.
is like, let's get your body fit and then work on how your thinking system works and your ideation works. Or I can hear, um, let's focus first on your body. How do you keep on sabotaging your body by how you think, what you believe, where you spend your energy on because you are trying to fit in instead of leading. So which
It's
one?
not either or. This is the thing, we love to make things either or. It's
Yeah,
bi-directional. So the body goes first, but it's not, but the brain and the story is having a really important role. I mean, there's a brilliant scientist called Alia Crum at Stanford. The way we think impacts our biology. Our biology impacts the way we think. So it's bi-directional. So back to your organizational design kind of metaphor. If we think about the cell as being the smallest, or even the mitochondria inside the cell, the energy part of the cell, all the way up, we kind of see these systems growing. We have a one cis human, and then we have a relationship, then we have a team. But if you look at an organizational design model, I would say that you have your logistics, you have your finance, you have your marketing, you have all of it. That's like our biological systems, and they are resting on the table, and the tablecloth are the humans that connect the systems.
yeah. So
So if
what
we look after the humans that are connecting the systems, we have a much more in a smooth information flow. It's not that there's not challenges, it's not messy, but the way that communication, it flows, just like we want information to flow from our body to brain and vice versa, smoothly. That's the same for me, kind of that almost mirrors the organizational design that you were kind of referring to.
Well, thank you for that correction. You create immediately an image like an hourglass. It's not
Mm,
about one side emptying, one side filling. No, it's about both.
mm,
And sometimes, and at the end, you turn the hourglass.
yeah.
So it's an ongoing sine wave of that one thing heals when some other parts empty, and vice versa.
I mean, for me, I would use that infinity sign. It's just this flow,
Yeah.
it's bi-directional and it's constant if in the body and the brain. Just like there's constant communication between humans in a room without words. There's an energetic communication, there's a resonance. Um, and that's where I think for leaders in particular, you know, they don't understand always that it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel. And how you make them feel is not always your words. It's how you enter the room. It's the energy you give off. It's the eye contact. It's the smile. It's the head movements. And you can be intentional with those, but it's also how those manifest really are an outcome of how regulated how your nervous system is.
Proximity,
Mm,
radiance, a word that we used in our pre-talk.
yeah.
Um, so what does it look like in your own experience to stay aligned with this, to stay in this infinity loop, when your capacity is under pressure?
Yeah. So, just personal examples, the last few weeks, my capacity has been under pressure. It's the end of term. I've got my eldest has graduated. She's a doctor. I've got my second daughter that's graduated. She's come home. And my third son's come back from Cambridge. All of them have come home with all of their stuff. And on top of that, we 2 weeks ago got a puppy. So here, my normal life has been with my husband and my youngest son we've got double the number of people in the house, plus a puppy that needs full time. So I'm getting up super early in the morning. We have to pay attention. She's not chewing things. There's a lot of things changed outside of me. And that has demanded my energy and attention. And now, if I had tried to continue with working in the same way that I was working prior to this change, I would be struggling. And that would impact the people outside of me. So I have to make decisions. Okay, I have this constrained amount of energy. How am I going to spend it so that I look after my own body? So I am resourced. I have that kind of regulation and support the transitions of my children and look after me and do a bit of work. And it's just a different sharing of resources. So I have to adapt. But at the center of that adaptation is a system that recognizes what is possible, what can wait for later, what is important now, what will help my system. So there are things that I would do just on a day-to-day basis. I still try and go into the pod, and I have a pod in the garden, do my own bit of meditation, just a bit of time for myself. I try and get to bed a little bit earlier. I'm doing things to offset the additional demand, so to maintain a healthy system.
I think this is a great example, even more because it's personal.
Mm,
There's so many leaders that I speak with that separate this from the responsibilities they carry in their business
mm,
as a founder or a CEO, and actually they relieve steam outside of their working hours. And you give a great example of the opposite. You know, life as a whole, where I recharge and keep my resources up to the level that it supports life
yeah.
in whole perspective, makes you show up where you carry your responsibilities, charged, resourced. So capacity is a foundation in a
Mm,
way for you to to be there where it matters, which is both at home as it is with your vision, your direction, your outlook, how you lead the future. So I love that because it's not compensating stress with funny behavior. Now it's all with intention and attention,
yeah.
and it's still fun.
Yeah.
It's probably even more fun because the fun is has a foundation. It's grounded in what matters. So it's both purposeful. So I think that how you regulate, in your example, pressure on you,
Mm.
you don't separate that into, yeah, but that's personal and
Well, I don't separate it because I'm the same human being if I'm in a home or I'm standing on a coaching session or if I'm presenting. I'm the same person. So in essence, I'm the same person. My role is different. How I have to perform is slightly different. But I think, this is an interesting, what I noticed last week, because the demand was higher and my environment had changed. I have, plans that I have strategies, right? I have things I want to execute. And what I noticed last week was um, my ability to execute was challenged because my capacity had been reduced by other demands. And just for a short while, I was getting frustrated with myself and trying to make a new plan,
yeah,
a new strategy. And I was like, oh, what's going on here? Why am I making a new plan right now
yeah,
in this moment? And what I discovered was that my system was feeling a little chaotic, a little bit out of control. And one of my mechanisms for feeling in control is to plan things, to take control. But in doing so, what I did was I stopped acting and I stopped doing things. I was just in my head.
yeah.
So recognize that actually, even with the best strategy, if you don't have capacity, it's very hard to deliver it. And what I tip towards, well, there must be something wrong with my plan, right? There must be something wrong with my strategy because I'm not. But actually, this is my own work, right? So I was the subject of my own work. Wait a minute, stop. What's going on here? And it was like, I see what's going on. You're trying to operate in the same way you were 2 weeks ago, but the conditions have changed, your demands have changed. There is nothing wrong with your plan. Leave it alone. What can you do to rebuild and to strengthen the capacity?
Another great example. And I think it just makes my next question irrelevant, because I was wondering, how do you navigate complexity, and ambition, when your capacity is under pressure, when there is this increased demand? And actually, you've just already answered that question. I do not navigate that. I take a pause.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest, hardest thing is the permission to pause, to
Yeah.
permission to just notice, I see what's happening here. And that's a lot of the work that I do with leaders and founders is just just notice what is happening and take a little bit of step back. Even just that stop noticing can just get a little bit of space between how you feel and what it is. Name it. That's I can see what's happening here. This is a pattern that's playing, and it's a pattern that works for me. Okay, and then what's the next thing I can do to not go where my brain's taking me, which is survival, and resource my system so that I can have more clarity.
I that's it makes me think. So I'm processing, a bit stumbling now. The Earlier this week, uh, one of my American peers asked me, "What are you doing for the summer? Are you taking a holiday European style, like longer than a week?" I said, "Yes, longer than a week." He said, and we started to talk about how is that possible, because the ramp up to get back into work after like 2.5 weeks of a pause, uh, is so intensive that it really makes it nearly not relevant and even like stupid to take such a long pause. And my feedback, intuitively, not processed, was like, but where are you aligned in this? If
Mm,
if if the pause means you connect with who you are, you start to listen again to the inside, your dreams, your alignments, your true ambitions, and not just all pleasing the outside world. How can that be so far off with the work that you need to get back into when you come back from your pause? And where is your alignment? Are you doing what really
yeah.
gives you pleasure? And we stopped the question there because it became painful. Um, but that's a bit what I listen
It's
like.
really interesting, isn't it? Because, there's we can't we need to be careful about being too romantic. We need to make money and do our jobs. Yeah. So there is a fundamental need to and at the same time, it's not an either or. And it's, I suppose, if we do as leaders, as human beings, do this inner work, even in a job that might be challenging or not 100% aligned, there is a way to create a dance of alignment. So it's better, right? Because yeah, in an ideal world, everyone could do their perfect job and their job would be just what they wanted.
Yeah,
But that's not the reality. But can you bring to the job your enough of you and enough alignment to make the best of what it is? And I think the example you gave was, there was a huge chasm in this particular person's existence between who they are and what they do. Um, so, in order to do what they do, they have to be very different from who they are. And that comes at a huge cost.
yeah, that's exactly, because that will backfire inside.
Yeah, it backfires inside and it backfires outside. So you have the hidden cost of the leader. I'm burning more energy, that dysregulation in the biological system. So you might have, pain, illness. It might show up in interpersonal relationships, but it has a cost in the organization, in how they show up, how they communicate with peers, how they communicate with their team. how they see the company growing. So it's inside and out. But we need, the only thing a leader really has direct control over is their internal world.
It
And
makes actually
the quality of that internal world is what then ripples to the outturn to the external world.
it makes the story of a leader different,
Mm,
because we, we tend to fall back to, as a leader, I took the risk, I sacrificed, it's all worth it. And actually, that is a very toxic message.
mm,
The message that I hear you share here is, I took care of myself so that I would show up wherever I show up as the fullest version of me, which is what my inner circle, my outer circle, my reality deserves.
mm,
So investing in myself as a leader is not selfish. It's the opposite of selfish. It's the only thing that I could feed, nurture, sustain, because the people next to me in proximity,
yeah.
they deserve for me to stay authentically on course of what matters, so that I bear it not by effort, but I bear it by identity.
Mm, yeah. And I think it's interesting, is that we talk about leaders in organizations, but humans are also leaders in families, they're parents, they're leaders in communities. And, when I think, again, I have 4 children. A lot of my hardest lessons that I have learned have been through parenting. When I have a saying, my internal environment becomes their environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's in the workplace, it's in the home. And I again learned this the hard way. I have one of my children's kind of on the spectrum and has various diagnoses. And I learned the hard way that if I didn't do the inner work, if I wasn't with him and regulated, it would resonate to him and he would struggle. And that's the case for all of our children, but some children are more sensitive, more complex than others do. So I learned a lot about the work that I do in that relationship.
It's another gemstone,
Mm,
the natural order that we are looking for on the micro scale is developed and experimented at home.
mm,
Home is the foundation of who you are.
yeah,
And you can have an external expression, wear a mask, but you learn what you need to learn at home.
yeah.
Uh,
And the children, I think, are one of the biggest teachers because we are so emotionally involved with them. If we can be with them and be authentic and be honest, and we can have upsets and ruptures and we can repair and apologize, take responsibility. If we can do that with our kids at home, we
yes.
can do it with ease with big people at work.
Yeah. Well, and I would just encourage any of our listeners who thinks, but oh, wait a minute, I separate those things, to really take a pause and challenge that decision, because it
Mm,
will do you good.
yeah.
Andrea, how can people connect with you to go deep, to learn more
So yeah,
with
so
you?
there's lots of ways. So I always love having conversation. I think that's a great way to start. So you can kind of book a conversation with me via LinkedIn or via my website. So that's andreaedmondson.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Substack. Again, so I have been taking a little pause recently from writing too much because I'm finishing my book. Um, but that's probably the best way, is just to actually have a conversation. I do have a program for coaches. I train coaches in my methodology, which is currently is on pause. It will open it up at the end of the year. I coach one-to-one with executives and founders, and I also do leader development training for teams. So there's lots of ways that you can bring this to your personal and professional life, but also to your organization.
Mm. I I encourage everyone to connect with you. And
Yeah.
the details are of how to connect with you are in the subscription of the podcast. So reach out through LinkedIn, the website, or subscribe to the Substack as a start. And to bring it to a close, what do you think is the first thing that someone can do when they no longer want to override their own capacity by obligation or whatever reason or excuse? What's the first thing they could do?
Probably the first thing is to acknowledge the first thing is they have done it, right? They've acknowledged that there is a gap between who they feel on the inside and how they're showing up on the outside. So that acknowledgement, I think, is a really important step. The next step is, okay, how can I help myself? And I guess, without working with somebody directly, like me or another coach or another professional, is to really put into your day these permissions to pause,
Yeah.
to give yourself permission to just stop for a minute or two, even just to close your eyes and just to notice the signals your body is already sending you, to name them, and then to give it one thing that it needs. And it could be as simple as a deep breath. It could be as simple as a glass of water, or going for a 5-minute walk, or a conversation with a trusted colleague or a friend. Doesn't need to be anything big, but that permission to pause and just notice and actually cue into what your body is already telling you is a huge step in just rebuilding the capacity that potentially exists.
Thank you. Well, to really close it, what are the final takeaways? What are the three things that we talked about that we want to remember ourselves?
So I suppose one of my things for me is just and that leaning into this idea that the body goes first.
Hmm.
Um, just because we are trained from a very young age, even in like kindergarten, preschool, we're told to eat at a certain time, go to the bathroom at a certain time, to play at a certain time. So that the body goes first. The brain's important. It has a story, but just tune back into the body. Um, Understand that stories do follow the body, and that the story, either what the brain says, do keep us stuck. So just noticing those three things, I think, is the body goes first. We have these stories that try and make sense of our experience, and yet these stories keep us stuck. And when we work in that arc of body, story, this story is actually not serving me, how can I change it? But they need to work coherently. If we just go straight to the story and argue with it and try and force it to change, we get resistance, we get frustration, we get shame, we get unpleasant feelings. And we'll try something for a few days or a few weeks and then it falls. If we go the other way and we support the capacity, we build that energy and how we spend the energy in the system first, then the brain is much more open to changing stories.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing that I want to ask is recognize your need for personal development, personal growth,
Mm.
and also look around you in your inner circle where you are growing. Stop separating it and start recognize it and start growing and start seeing what it does to your life in the fullest, both personal and professional, when you start to acknowledge who you are and where you grow.
Yeah. I think I love that look around to your people around you, because I think growth doesn't happen in isolation. It happens in relationships, whether that's a friend or even on a podcast. Listening to somebody on a podcast can be that knowledgeable other that helps you shift from where you are to where you have the potential to go.
Thank you, Andrea, for sharing freely the deeper insights that really matter.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank everyone who tuned in. And there must be something that sparked your imagination or your consciousness listening to us. And I really encourage you to create space and time. And if you want the group, continue this conversation. We run weekly what we call the All Dialogue, an exclusive peer conversation for leaders done with surface level answers and want to pioneer what's coming next. Just use the link in the description to reach out, and I will make sure you will receive the right invitation to experience what such a dialogue looks like. I hope to see you there or next week in another podcast.